It's the secret plan allegedly being floated by the Albanese government this week to bring back 60 wives and children of former Islamic State terrorists currently residing in refugee camps in northern Syria. We don't know much about the details of this plan. The Prime Minister has been in hiding for much of this week, only giving his first press conference today since last Friday. But this vexed issue has caused all sorts of uproar in many Australian communities. Di Lee, independent member for Fowler in Western Sydney, told the Nine Papers yesterday she was offended by these repatriations. English is a second language, as you know, so I'm struggling with that word. She's offended by the prospect of these families of Islamic State terrorists coming back. She said it was very hurtful to Christian refugees in her southwest Sydney electorate. And former Cumberland Mayor and now Councillor Steve Christou has also lashed the federal government, saying the proposal of the federal government to bring back ISIS brides is treacherous and un-Australian. I'm very pleased to say Councillor Steve Christou joins me now. Steve, welcome to the program. You didn't miss there. How concerned are you that these ISIS brides, if they're brought back to Australia, that they're going to be dumped in Western Sydney?
Well, I'm very concerned because the realities are these ISIS brides should not be coming back to Australia full stop. And if they are, they're going to be dumped in Western Sydney. You can bet your bottom dollar on it because that's where the governments like to drop problematic people. And in this case, the individuals that are treacherous, un-Australian and problematic, and they're going to come back to Australia if the federal government goes through with this moronic proposal and have their hand out for Centrelink payments and express housing and take away precious resourcing and affordable housing from residents that have been on the housing list for 10, 12 and 15 years. It's unacceptable. I don't understand why we're rewarding such treachery. These people turn their back on Australian values and went and supported people that committed crimes and atrocities and rapes and beheadings. It's just preposterous, and I don't understand why the federal government would be considering such a move.
Well, many members of your community have escaped the tyranny of Islamist forces, whether it's Islamic State or other Islamist countries. How would they be feeling about this proposal?
They're feeling absolutely terrified and betrayed. I've spoken to a few community members only yesterday, and they've expressed their views to me, and they said, we came to Australia to avoid these atrocities, and we've embraced Australia as a loving multicultural community, and now to have the wives or our tormentors come back and be rehoused and placed amongst our community is absolutely treacherous. And their view is, and that of the community I represent, that Western Sydney will not be a dumping ground for ISIS brides. And if the federal government think that they will dump these brides in Western Sydney, they're in for a huge fight because they will not be welcomed with open arms.
Well, I'm sure the Till seats will be welcoming them. Maybe that could be something they could consider. Now, what about the argument that, well, sure, the wives are one question. Many of them chose to go there as adults, but what about the children? The children are innocent victims in all this. Don't they deserve to be in Australia if they've got some claim to be Australian citizens?
Look, it's a difficult question, and I have great sympathy for the children, but the realities once again are these, and we can't shy away from them. You receive your early lessons from your parents and what you see at home. These children are going to be very troubled, and it's going to take a lot of support and resources to help them overcome any trauma and indoctrinated mindsets that they might have. And I don't think it's an appropriate environment to be bringing them back to. And we can't just say, well, we've got to bring them back for the children. It's an unfortunate situation, but their parents made that choice for them.
Now, the Prime Minister has remained quiet on this issue all week, but has there been any consultation with this, with the federal government and people from the council or the Western Sydney community?
No consultation of whatsoever, definitely not with myself or any other elected representatives that I talk to. We have heard nothing. It's very disappointing that the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, can find time to go to rock concerts and the football. And when we're just coming out of the worst pandemic in recent memory, and we've suffered 6 interest rate rises in a row as well, yet people are struggling to pay the mortgage, the rent, the bills, and put food on the table to feed their children. You would think there'd be other priorities to address and help Australian citizens other than bringing back ISIS brides a priority. It's disappointing. We haven't heard anything from it. And if the Prime Minister is seriously considering bringing back these unpatriotic, un-Australian people, I'm sorry, he's a moron of the highest order.
Now, just lastly, what I haven't understood about this story all week is what's prompted it? I mean, who was crying out for this policy reversal from the federal government? I thought, it was fairly widely supported that, though this is a difficult decision, particularly when it comes to those children, that this was the safest decision for the wider Australian community, and it's one that had to be made. What's prompted Labor to go and reverse the former government's decision in this area?
Well, look, I wouldn't know what elements specifically have prompted Labor, but I can guarantee you it's coming from some form of woke left element think tank. And quite frankly, we need to stand up to such stupidity. At what stage do we draw a line in this country and say, no more, enough? These people were told before they went overseas that if you leave here, and the wives included, you will not be coming back. So what kind of message does it send if the Australian government now takes these people back with open arms and offers up our taxpayer dollars and our resources ahead of the citizens that have done the right thing and abide by our values and contribute to society?
Councillor Steve Christou, thank you so much for joining me tonight.